Hey y'all, and good morning. Well, look where I'm at today. I'm inside of my beautifully, freshly painted kitchen. So if you've been following me along on Instagram, you've been watching my stories and watching as I've been going along with this kitchen remodel. So back in February, our refrigerator, which this is a new one, decided to spring a leak from the ice maker line, and our hardwood floors got totally flooded. So we had to replace those, and with that became replacing a pantry, and with that the pantry wouldn't match, so then we had to redo the cabinets. So this has been a long process, but I am glad that we are finally finished, and I would say we are like 98% finished. So I wanted to kind of show you guys the process that I did to redo these cabinets. Had a couple people ask me what I've used, and so I tried a lot of different things. So I think I'm not professional, so by any means, just take that with a grain of, grain of salt. But what I've used, and I felt like it did a pretty good job. So let me show you the tools that I used to get this beautiful finish. Okay, so here are the beautiful cabinets all finished. And it definitely was a labor of love. So the first thing that I did getting started was I actually took off all of our doors and drawer facings. So I know some people will paint them, as they are, but I thought it would make a much cleaner finish to take them off. So one of the things that I did that was very helpful was inside of each one of these, I wrote in here where it was located. Now, I've noticed some people actually do that with a numbering system, which I think would be very easy to do. But what I did was I just put refrigerator right lower. So then I knew exactly where it went. But if I would have labeled it like, say, number 15, and I put like number 15 here and then number 15 here, then I would know what one it was. And then I took that and covered it up with a piece of painter's tape. So one of the things I wish I would have done was labeled each one of these hardware pieces, which one was the upper one and which one was the lower one. Because with these hardware pieces, they actually have a little set here where you can make them go in or out or back and forth. And I felt like they were set pretty good the way they were, but I did not label them. And so that would be something I would do differently if I had to do it over again. So after I got all of the doors off, I used this crud cutter. And so I set my doors up on a set of sawhorses. And we actually already have this little set of sawhorses here. They either came from Home Depot or Lowe's, but it's called Tough Built. They're very light, which I like. And then I just used some 2x4s across them and put some, just an old sheet underneath them, and then some old sheet on top of it, on top of the 2x4s. So I laid each one of them down, and then I cleaned them really good with this crud cutter and just a little sponge. So that helped to get them nice and clean because they were very dirty. Then after the crud cutter, I went in with my little sander. This is just one of the little Ryobi ones, and they have the little Velcro little disc here. And this is what it looks like. So I just used the 220 because really what I was doing was just taking off the polyurethane layer, and that got that off really nicely. So just kind of giving it a scuff sand all the way through. And then in the little areas in between where you have like your little grooves, I just used a little piece of paper folded up, little sandpaper, and just kind of roughed in those areas right through there. So it was super easy just to kind of give them a quick little scuff sand to get that polyurethane layer off. Okay, so after the sanding, I used this wood filler. Now it does say stainable because originally I was going to stain them until I figured out these cabinets just were not in the best shape to be stained. But you can also paint on this as well. So I just filled any little holes, let it dry, and then I just sanded it with our little sandpaper. So this worked really well. Okay, so after the sanding, I used these Duragold tack cloths, and I bought these off Amazon, which was the most affordable way to go because these things are pretty pricey, and I went through a bunch of these. I love these so much. They do make your hands feel a little sticky, so you kind of have to wash your hands, but these were great for getting up all of the dust. So I love these and definitely would recommend these. The other thing I recommend is wearing some gloves, and I really like these little nitrile gloves. They held up really well, and they didn't seem to like get too like worn out by wearing them for a long period of time. Okay, so the next step that I did was to use the primer, and this is actually Stix Primer. I got this from the Benjamin Moore paint store, and I'm sorry you can't read that on here, but it's spelled S-T-I-X, and it was very good. I definitely liked it better doing it in a sprayer than I did by hand, but it gave a very good coverage. At first, I started off with 2 coats, and with sand with 220 between each coat, but then on my last ones I just did 1 coat and sanded afterwards, and I got the same effectiveness. So it did really good with just 1 coat of the Stix. After I got all the doors and the drawers primed, I worked on doing, I guess you would call this like the frame of the cabinets. And so I kind of went in with the same step. I used the crud cutter to clean everything, and then I used the wood filler to fill any of the little holes in. And then I gave everything a good sand with the 220, and then came in with the Stix. And I used a roller, and I used this pretty roller, and I got this all off Amazon. And I really, really liked, these are the mirror finish ones, and I really like these. And I got enough that I could just use 1 fresh each time, because I felt like having a fresh one each time just made the finish go on so much smoother. So I used this with the primer and with the paint, and these were really good. To tape off around the edges, I really like using this frog tape. This one did the best for me. The blue tape was terrible. So this one, spend a little extra money and get the better one. Then for brushes, I got these off of Amazon, and I have used these several times in the past. They're very affordable, but they're by Work Pro, and you get a set of like 5 or 6 for under $10. And so they're really cheap enough that you can use a fresh brush each time. But these were great. The little angle brushes were great to get into those little hard to reach places. So if I used the brush, then I would always come back. If it was an area that I could, then I would go back and just kind of smooth it up with these. Okay, so I went through 2 different types of paint. I first started off with the Benjamin Moore paint, and I just didn't like how long it took to dry. It was super, super slow, which is great for leveling, but when you're working in a kitchen where everybody is still living, it makes it very, very difficult. So I went with the Sherwin-Williams Emerald paint, and it was so great. At first, I felt like with the brush, it would go on a little streaky, and then with my sprayer, it would go on a little bit, almost like it was kind of bubbly, but it has self-leveling properties, and if you just let it do its job and don't touch it, it will level out, and it'll give you that nice, smooth finish. So it's definitely worth the extra money to get this emerald paint. So to get the cabinets ready to spray, I sprayed all the doors and the drawers. I used these coat hangers here, and they were very sturdy. I weighed one of our doors, and one of the doors over in that direction were 10 pounds. I did not weigh these, but they're super, super heavy. Those are probably 12 to 15 pounds a piece. But these, they didn't bend or anything. They did so good. And then I used a little drill, and I drilled into the bottom of the cabinet, and that is where I connected. These are 1-inch cup hooks. So I actually bought the wrong size first, but the 1-inch fits perfectly on this clothes hanger. So when you're drilling your holes for your cup hooks, you want to make sure you're in a spot that's inconspicuous. So you wouldn't want to do it like right here where you can see. You would want to do it on the bottom edge, and you want to do it just the length of the clothes hanger. What I would do is I'd lay my clothes hanger down on my door, and I would kind of measure it from here over to here. And it seemed to work really well out there. If you had it like too close together with the 2 cup hooks, it seemed like it wanted to wobble, but if you had it spread out further, it gave it more stability. Okay, so this was a lifesaver here. This is just a clothes rack, just a very, very simple one that I purchased off Amazon. But it is super sturdy. The way the pipes kind of interlock together, you don't get a lot of that bending like you do with a solid one. So this one did great. And actually, if I had to do this all over again, I would probably get maybe 3 or 4 more of these. One to go outside in the tent, and then these to go inside when we're letting everything dry, because I had to set up, if you were watching over on stories, everything looked crazy around the house. I set up a ladder in here with a rake to hang them on, and then I set up my sawhorses in there with a broom to hang them on. Then I had this one set up in here, so I had like drying racks everywhere. So that is one of the big things. You have to have a lot of space to be able to dry these cabinet doors, and when it's hot and humid, you don't want to do it outside. It just would take forever to dry. And then also the bugs kind of get in your finish. Okay, so this is the sprayer that I use, and this is the one by HomeRite. So this is what it looks like here. And I got the Finish Max Super. So I ended up using the tip that came on it, and this is like the fine mist one. And this right here, you can direct it however you want it to go, vertical, horizontal, or round. And you can kind of hear a little bit of a click when you do it, not much. But the best thing to do is to practice on a piece of cardboard. So I actually had a box out there, and I would just practice on it. And then you also have the dial over here. And if you go down all the way, it's minus, so there's like no paint flow, but the upper is more paint flow. So this is the container that you put your paint in. And one of the things that I did was I used a gallon-sized baggie. This is just a small one, but just for example. And I put that down in there first. And then I poured my paint, and I filled it all the way up to the top here. You have to have a little bit of room for this pipe to go in, but I could get it to about right there. I think it might have a line. Yeah, it has a line on it. Just kind of hard to see. And I put 2 tablespoons of water and mixed it really good. But this way, it made it really easy. So if I had extra left over, I could actually just close it up and put it in the refrigerator for the next day, which I ended up not having any extra. It took me to paint all of these cabinets. It took one of these containers and then a little bit extra. So it actually didn't take much at all to paint these. So I ended up putting on 1 coat of paint, and I felt like it had really, really good coverage. Some of them I did go back and do 2 coats of paint and do a little light sanding in between, but those were for the ones that I felt like were going to get the most usage. So like, you know, you think about the cabinets that you open the most, like your pantry. So I made sure that I gave it 2 coats. The ones up top that we hardly ever use, I just did 1 coat of paint for them, because they'll hardly ever get touched, like those there and those there. And I think they look great, and the finish looks good. Now there are a couple little areas that I need to touch up. One of the areas is right here. Because I put the wrong screws in when I was putting the screws back on, it has 2 sets of screws. It has a short screw and a long screw. And I put the long screw in first, and I was like, whoopsie. So the long screw came out through here. But I'm just gonna, you know, do a little touch-up paint on that, and that'll be fine. And the step I forgot to mention to you guys, I'm so sorry, is that after I got them all sanded, I added the holes for the hardware. So originally these just had like 1 little pull here. And so I ordered these off of Amazon. I made my own little template, and I had to drill an extra hole. So I did that after I sanded and before I primed. So that worked out really, really well. But these are super cute. It was a little nerve-wracking at first drilling into my new cabinets. But after I kind of got the hang of it and I felt like my template was really good, then it was a little less anxiety for me to do that. So it's always good to kind of maybe start off like practicing before you actually just jump into it. Now these over here, not only did I have to drill a new hole through the cabinet, but I also had to drill a hole through here as well. So what I did was I actually put our cabinet on, and the cabinet drawer had a hole already that I had put in for the new one. And then what I did was I just drilled right through that new hole, and it just drilled right through. It did make a mess, but this is one of the things I was talking about with these cabinets. They're not the best. That's like a hole. I should have probably filled that in a little bit better, but that's okay. But overall, I love the way they look. Of course, we don't have any of the soft close because these are old cabinets, but we'll have to get some little stoppers here so they won't cling together. But I think they look good, and the finish looks really nice. I'm still going to work on this little area up here. I have an idea about doing one of those picture railings. So I was getting some ideas off of Pinterest today, and so I'll look into that. So that'll be a next project. And then also another project is to do the backsplash. And I also need to clean my stove. That stove gets so dirty in that section, but it comes off with Barkeeper's Friend. So a new backsplash and new backsplash over here. So I haven't quite decided. I felt like I needed to get the cabinets done so I could get more of an idea how everything was going to look. At first I picked out a really light color for the cabinets. It was called Soft White by Sherwin-Williams, but man, it was too white. It was so clean compared to like the dirtiness of the countertops. I mean, you know, they're not dirty, but they're not a pure white. And so this is a type of quartzite, and it has, you know, the appearance of white, but there's a lot of colors in it. So it was just too much of a contrast there. So this is Accessible Beige by Sherwin-Williams, and I think it turned out great. It has like a little bit of a gray undertone to it. And so I think it goes well with our finishes of our house being a early 2000 house. So this is the before. And this is the after. I hope you enjoyed this little tour of our new kitchen cabinets. I am so excited that they're done. Well, 98% done, so there's still a little bit more tweaking that I want to do. But, you know, I'm not a professional, but I was able to get through it, and I learned so much every single day. It does take a lot of time and a lot of energy, so go ahead and prep your family beforehand and let them know that it'll be worth it in the end. But these are the steps that I used, and I think they worked out really well. So drop a comment down below and let me know if you've ever thought about painting your kitchen, or if you have painted your kitchen, and the tips and tricks that you like to use when you're painting. So I hope you have a great day, and I hope you have a chance to get in your gardens today. Bye, friends.